All right, welcome to week 5, the recap of the discussions. So we talked about emulators, and then I gave a scenario where everybody had to troubleshoot something. So the emulators, briefly on that, the GNS3 is a free emulator that allows you to, basically emulators allow you to set up a virtual network, a dummy network, a sandbox, so you can try things out and see if it actually works. It's just kind of a cool way to pre-stage an idea. If you really wanted to get crazy, you could use this in your term assignment or in your semester assignment if you wish. It do not require that. You can use it to create a detailed diagram of your network if you so wished, to connect everything together. That allows you to test it out, see if it's a feasible idea. Because it's a logical connection that the emulators use. It's not necessarily physical topology. It is in one sense that you have to connect switches together and so forth, but it's still in a logical format. So it gives you an idea of what this would look like and how it will function. So what you could do, if you wanted to, you could use the emulator to set up your semester assignment diagram, and then take a snapshot of that screen and use it in your presentation if you wish. Again, I just wanted you to become familiar with an emulator, so you know it's out there, so you know that it's a fairly usable tool. The best ones are the ones that you pay for, but GNS3 is definitely a nice free tool to use. And as people pointed out, it is now property of SolarWinds. Don't know if you're a SolarWinds fan or not. I've used SolarWinds in the past. Pros and cons. So again, it was just to get you familiar with an emulator, and you do need to use an emulator. Cisco has its own emulator. If you're going to pursue a Cisco cert, you will need to get familiar with their emulator. They do provide it for free once you sign up for your certification exams, and they'll let you go in there and play in the sandbox. So getting familiar with an emulator kind of gives you a leg up. If you do the free version, it gives you a leg up before you actually get exposed to any of the paid versions that might be used in a business, or again, if you're doing a Cisco cert. So that was all that was for that assignment. Then we get into the scenario. The scenario is you as the network admin, you console into a switch via the IP address, configure your switch port for a printer. So you're going to set up a printer on the network, you get the VLAN set up, you make sure that the VLAN, you add the VLAN to the port as an untagged VLAN. That means internal routing, a regular host can use that VLAN basically. And the traffic needs to be routed from the edge switch to the core or distribution switch. After configuring the VLAN, you plug the printer into the wall jack. You see the printer NIC light up. All appears to be good. However, you notice that the printer shows that it's offline when you try to access it through the print server. You also can't access it when you open up the web browser and try to navigate to the IP address. And you can't ping it. So you check the printer network configuration, you see that it's proper. It has a proper unique IP address as it's supposed to. Its subnet mask is correct. Its default gateway is correct, unlike one of the other discussions, the other scenarios that we had. The switch port has the proper untagged VLAN or access VLAN on the port. The printer NIC lights are showing that the proper color. In other words, that they have a good connection. You've qualified the Ethernet cable. You've made sure that it's good. Digging a little more, you find that this is the only printer that's plugged into that switch. You think, okay, what does that mean? Well, that means that if you were to get focused on just this printer, you could keep assuming that it's the printer that's having the issue. Perhaps it's a bad NIC after all. Let's say you plug your laptop into the switch port. Are you going to pull an IP address? That's one of the troubleshooting things that you would see. So what tools would you use to check? What troubleshooting steps would you do? I mentioned plugging your laptop into the switch port. You'll find that when you plug your laptop into the switch port, you won't have network connection. It'll blink, everything will be okay looking, but you won't be able to connect properly. So So what tools do you use? So you plug the printer back in, you ping it, you still can't ping it, you try various things, and you've checked your network cable, all that kind of stuff. Everything looks good, but you just for some reason cannot connect to this printer. And so what do you think the possible issue is? Well, one of the issues could be is that if you've configured everything properly, if everything is working properly like it's supposed to, one of the key points was this is the only printer on the switch. So again, if you get too focused on the one printer, you might miss the big picture. Since this is the only printer on the switch, would any other printer be having issues if they were plugged into this switch? And so one of the things you might want to check is the VLAN. So you go, well, it's untagged on the port, it's good. You check your uplink port, you see that that printer VLAN is tagged on your uplink port, so it should be communicating printer VLAN traffic out, right? And you go, okay, well, yeah. Check the core or distribution switch that edge switch is plugged into. If that edge switch is plugged into, it should be plugged into the core or distribution switch on one of the ports. Check that port. Make sure that the VLAN is tagged on that port as well, so the core distribution switch knows how to route the traffic. Otherwise, it's not going to know it needs to route traffic for the printer VLAN. It's going to assume that all of the VLANs on it are good and everybody's happy. Once you activate the VLAN on that port, make it a tagged VLAN, all of a sudden your printer will begin to communicate. So that was just a VLAN issue. One of the things to be aware of, because you can get so focused on just the one aspect of the printer, the one aspect of the network connection, the one aspect of even just the switch. Did I do everything I'm supposed to do on the switch? You forget that there's more to the world than that little domain right there. It connects to a core switch or a distribution switch that does routing. Is that configured properly to actually route the printer VLAN? So that's also something to consider. Anyway, those were the two topics of discussion. Your input was great. I always enjoy seeing everybody's ideas and input flow. Again, there's no right or wrong, necessarily any right or wrong answer. It's just how exposing you to troubleshooting ideas and different things to look for. So you all did really well.